For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had ruled all the stars and all the worlds that circled them. 5 great alien races controlled everything. They decided which planets could have cities. They decided which species could travel between stars. They decided what technology other races could use and what they could not. These 5 elder races were called the Vilthar, the Meridians, the Synthara, the Lumini, and the Obsidian. Each one was powerful in its own way. Each one believed they had the right to control the lesser species. Earth was just one small planet among billions. It held a species called humans, but the Galactic Council did not think humans were important. They saw humans as primitive and violent. The Council put Earth in a protected zone, like putting a wild animal in a cage at a zoo. No other species could visit. No one could give humans advanced technology. The humans must stay simple and stay quiet. That was the law. For 500 years, humans did not even know the Council existed. They had no idea that thousands of other species lived in space above their heads. But then, everything changed. Commander Park Jin-ho stood at a window on a human spaceship called the Defiant. He was a tall man with short black hair and dark, determined eyes. He wore a uniform that was made from a material humans had never used before. This material was strong and light, taken from alien metals that the human scientists had finally learned to work with in secret. Jin-ho looked out at the stars and thought about his mission. He thought about his people and why they had to do this terrible thing. Below him, in a room filled with computers and machines that glowed with blue light, Engineer Kang Min-soo checked the weapon again and again. His hands shook a little as he worked. Min-soo was younger than Jin-ho, with a round face and worried eyes. He kept running the numbers through the computer to make sure they were correct. The numbers never changed. The weapon would work. It had to work. The weapon was called a railgun. It was not a new idea. Humans had thought of this weapon long ago, but they never had the power to build it. Now they did. The railgun used electricity and magnets to push a small metal ball very, very fast. The ball could travel at 30,000 kilometers every second. Nothing could stop it. The Council's ships had shields, but those shields were made to stop energy weapons like lasers. A railgun fired solid metal. It was so simple and so deadly. In another part of the ship, Dr. Choi Ji-woo worked on something different. She was a scientist with long black hair pulled back tightly, and she worked without stopping. She was trying to make something that would change the galaxy even more than the railgun. She was trying to make a machine that could move a person from one place to another place without the person traveling through space. This machine was called a teleporter. Humans had only discovered this was possible 3 years ago. They were still learning how to make it work. The idea was this: everything in the universe is made of small pieces called atoms. If you could know where every single atom was in a person's body, and you could move all those atoms to another place at the same time, then the person would be in that other place. It sounded like magic, but it was science. Many scientists said it was impossible. It would take too much power. But Ji-woo believed it could be done. She worked every day to prove it could be done. Captain Ryu Soo-jin was different from Jin-ho and Min-soo. She commanded a second ship called the Phoenix. She was a woman who had studied war and strategy since she was a small child. Her mind moved fast. She could see what would happen next before it actually happened. She was thinking about what the Council would do when they discovered humans had built this weapon. She was already planning for the next battle, and the one after that. High above Earth, in a place where humans could not see it, was a space station called Kepler Station. This station was not made by humans. The Galactic Council had built it long ago. It was the most important place in this part of space. This station sent out all the laws and rules from the Council. It sent out warnings if anyone broke the rules. It controlled which ships could travel where. Without this station, the Council's power in this area would be broken into pieces. That was why Jin-ho had to destroy it. Commander Jin Ho looked at the time. His people had worked for 5 years to build this ship and this weapon, 5 years of secret work. They had hidden things from the Council's machines that watched from space. They had hidden the factories. They had hidden the plans. They had almost gotten caught many times. But they had not been caught. The time was now. Jin Ho pressed a button on a small computer in his hand. He sent a message to Min Su without using any words. It was just a signal, a command. Min Su understood. He started the weapon. The magnets inside the railgun became hot with electricity. They began to push against the metal ball, faster and faster. The whole ship shook a little. The lights on the walls blinked. Everyone held their breath. Then Jin Ho pressed another button. The metal ball shot out from the ship so fast that the air around it caught fire. The ball was small, just the size of a person's fist. But it was made of metal so heavy that even something so small weighed as much as a car. And it was moving at 30,000 kilometers every second. The Kepler station did not see the weapon coming until it was too late. The station's computers did notice something strange, a small object moving very fast. But the computers did not believe this was dangerous. They had seen thousands of rocks and space dust hit the station before. The shields were not even turned on. The shields were not prepared for something like this. The metal ball hit the station at the exact center, where all the power plants were located. It did not stop. It did not slow down. It punched through metal and machines and computers like a hole through paper. It went through the entire station in less than 1 second. Then it came out the other side and kept going into space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. The power plants inside the station exploded. The explosion was so bright and so hot that it looked like a small sun had been born inside the station. The station broke into thousands of pieces. Those pieces flew out into space in every direction. Some pieces were so small they disappeared into the darkness. Some pieces were so large that they looked like whole buildings floating in empty space. For millions of kilometers in every direction, alien species saw the light of the explosion. In ships, on space stations, on planets. Everyone saw the light and knew something impossible had happened. The Galactic Council's most important station was gone. Destroyed. By something. But by what? The answer came quickly. Jin Ho's ship sent out a message to every radio and every communication system in the galaxy. The message was in many languages. It said this: "The humans have arrived. We are not slaves. We will no longer obey the Council. We are free." The message was simple. It was short. But it shook the entire galaxy like an earthquake shakes the ground. On 100,000 worlds, beings of all kinds heard the message and whispered to each other, "Can this be true? Can one species really stand against the Galactic Council?" The answer to that question would change everything. But no one knew it yet. The shockwave from humanity's first weapon was only just beginning to travel through space. The 5 elder races of the Galactic Council sat together in their great chamber on the Vaelthar home world. The Vaelthar were made of crystal and light. They could see through walls and rocks and clouds. They could see far into space and far into the past. But what they could not see was how to stop what was happening now. The Council had called this emergency meeting within hours of receiving the news. The destruction of Kepler Station was more than just losing a building. It was more than losing machines and computers. It was the loss of something that the Council believed could never be lost: their power, their authority. The idea that they were the strongest, the most advanced, and the only ones who could make decisions for the galaxy. A being made of pure energy spoke first. This was a Lumine named Speaker of Light. The Lumine had no bodies like other species. They were just light and energy held together by forces that other beings did not fully understand. "How did the humans acquire this weapon?" the speaker asked. "How did they learn to build something so advanced when we have kept them isolated?" The Meridians were confused and upset. The Meridians could read the thoughts of others. They could understand what anyone was feeling just by being near them. They were disturbed because when they tried to read the thoughts of the human commander, they could not. Something about human minds was different. Something was blocked. This had never happened before. No one had an answer to the questions. No one understood how humans had done this. The Council had believed humans were simple creatures. Humans lived short lives. Humans were violent and emotional. Humans could not possibly build technology like this in secret. But they had. And now the galaxy knew about it. Far below, on a space station that orbited between human territory and the rest of the galaxy, Admiral Yoon Hae-won was preparing something that would make the Council's problem much, much worse. Admiral Yoon was a woman with strong shoulders and a strong face. She had served humanity as a military leader for 20 years. She had trained soldiers and pilots and sailors. She had studied the Council's tactics and written books about how they controlled the galaxy. But now, she was not a military leader. Now she was something else. She was a messenger. She was the person who would share humanity's greatest secret with the entire galaxy. In her hands, she held a small device that looked like a cube made of glass. Inside the cube, information was stored. This information was the complete plans for something called a teleportation matrix. This was the technology that Dr. Choi Ji-woo had worked on. This was the machine that could move things from one place to another place without traveling through space. Admiral Yoon stood in the Great Hall where representatives of many different species gathered. There were hundreds of beings here. Some had many arms, some had no arms at all. Some flew above the ground because they were too large to walk. Some were so small they had to stand on tables so others could see them. But all of them were there because all of them had questions about what had just happened. Admiral Yoon walked to the center of the hall. She held the cube above her head so everyone could see it. The light from her hand reflected off the glass and made the cube glow. "The humans have not just built a weapon," Admiral Yoon said, and her voice was loud and clear. "The humans have built a future. This device contains knowledge. This knowledge shows how to build what humans call a teleporter. With this machine, a person can be transported across 100 light years in less than a second. This technology can move a human or an Obsidian or anyone else from a planet far away to a ship nearby, or to another planet, or anywhere else." The hall became very quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. If everyone had teleporters, the Council could not control who went where anymore. The Council could not decide which planets were allowed to have visitors. The Council could not keep the lesser species separated and divided. A creature that looked like an octopus with blue skin and many eyes stood up. This was an Obsidian named Wave Rider. The Obsidian had been slaves of the Council for thousands of years. They were forced to do dangerous work. They were not allowed to have their own governments or their own laws. Wave Rider's voice shook with emotion when he spoke. "Is this true?" Wave Rider asked. "Can we really have this technology? Can our people really use this to be free?" Admiral Yoon opened the cube. Light poured out of it and filled the entire hall. This light carried the information in a form that all the species could understand. Every being in the hall received the plans. Every being now knew how to build a teleporter. Back on the human ship Defiant, Dr. Lee Yoon-ji was watching everything. Lee was a scientist who studied how information moved through the galaxy. She was young, with quick hands and quick thinking. When Admiral Yoon released the plans, Lee felt it happen through the computer networks. The knowledge was spreading. It was moving faster than light itself, jumping from one communication system to another. Lee sent out a message to Captain Ryu Soo-jin. "The knowledge is released. 17 species have already started building their own teleporters. 3 species have announced they are no longer part of the Council. The galaxy is changing right now. Sujin was in the command room of her ship, the Phoenix. She was watching the news come in from all over space. It was happening faster than she had hoped. Some groups were already attacking council stations. Some were already declaring independence. The chain reaction had begun, and no one could stop it now. In the capital city of the Synthera, in a building that was part machine and part organic living thing, the government met in emergency session. The Synthera were beings that were half robot and half biological creature. They could think like machines, but also feel like living beings. They understood that they had always been part of the council, but they had never truly believed in the council's rules. Now they saw a choice. They could stay with the council, or they could join the new way. By the end of the day, the Synthera announced that they were leaving the council. They would help other species build teleporters. They would share their knowledge. They would be part of something new. Minister Kang Min-jae was a human who worked on diplomacy and negotiation. He was an older man with gray hair and patient eyes. He was on a station that broadcast to the entire galaxy. When he received news that so many species were joining together, he went on the broadcast and spoke to every species in every corner of known space. "This is the beginning," Min-jae said. "We have proven that the old way does not have to continue. We have shown that knowledge should not be hidden. We have shown that freedom is possible. We invite every species, every government, every individual to be part of this new future. Join us. Help us build something better." The Obsidian Collective, a group of warrior species, heard this message and became angry. They did not want a new future. They wanted power. They wanted to be the ones who made decisions. They began to gather their ships and prepare for war. But the council was broken. The Meridians were leaving. The Luminae were stepping back. The Vilethar were confused. And without unity, the council had no real power at all. The shockwave from that first railgun blast had become a tidal wave that was washing away everything the council had built. The galaxy would never be the same again. And the most interesting part was just beginning. The crystal structures of the Vilethar homeworld began to break and crack, not because anything was hitting them or damaging them physically, but because the Vilethar themselves were vibrating with powerful emotions. For the first time in 3,000 years, the greatest race in the galaxy was experiencing something they had never felt before: doubt, uncertainty, fear of the future. Deep beneath the crystal towers, in a chamber where light traveled through specially shaped gemstones, the leader of the Vilethar was making a decision that would shock the entire council. This being's name was Sovereign of the Deep, and she was ancient beyond measure. She had lived for almost 5,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had guided the council through wars and disasters. But she had never seen anything like what was happening now. The Meridians had sent a message to the council. The message was simple, but devastating. The Meridians, the telepathic race that had served as judges and counselors for 3 millennia, were withdrawing from the council. They would not obey council rules anymore. They would not enforce council laws on other species. They were finished. The reason was interesting. Many Meridians had joined the consciousness-sharing network that humans had created. When they connected to this network, they felt something they had not felt in a very long time. They felt the thoughts and emotions of ordinary species. They felt what it was like to live under oppression. They felt what it was like to have someone else make decisions for you. And they did not like what they felt. A Meridian named Dreamwalker was one of the first to leave the council. Dreamwalker had spent 500 years enforcing council rules. He had told species what they could and could not do. But when he joined the consciousness network and felt the pain of those beneath them, he realized something important. The council was wrong. It had always been wrong. And he could not be part of something wrong anymore. On the neutral station, Prosecutor Park Hee-jun was preparing to handle something no one had ever had to handle before: justice for billions of beings. Hee-jun was a careful man who believed in order and law. He had studied how justice systems worked in many different cultures. He was not military like Jinho or Sujin. He was not a scientist like Ji Woo. But he might be more important than either of them. He Jun was setting up what he called the Truth and Reconciliation process. This process would allow beings who had committed crimes under the Council's rule to confess what they had done. If they told the truth, they would not be punished with death or imprisonment. Instead, they would have to help repair the damage they had caused. They would have to work to fix the worlds they had destroyed or the species they had hurt. Many people thought this was a terrible idea. Many wanted revenge. On a world called Osida Prime, the Ossidian species gathered in anger. For 3,000 years, they had been treated as less than beings. They had been forced to work in dangerous places. Their children had been taken from them and trained as soldiers for the Council. Now that they were free, they wanted to make the Council suffer as much as they had suffered. But Hee-jun believed something different. He believed that if they created a cycle of revenge and punishment, the galaxy would never truly be free. It would just trade one kind of suffering for another kind. So he went to Osida Prime himself, unarmed and alone, and he spoke to the Ossidian leaders. "Your pain is real," Hee-jun said. "Your anger is justified. But if you kill those who hurt you, then you become what you hated. The galaxy will never stop hurting. It will just hurt in a different way." Some Ossidians listened. Some did not. Some wanted to execute everyone who had served the Council. But slowly, very slowly, many began to see that Hee-jun was offering them something better, a way to move forward without being chained to the past. Meanwhile, a more dangerous problem was developing. Not everyone wanted freedom and cooperation. The Obsidian Collective was using the new technology to grab power. They had learned how to build railguns from studying what humans had done. They had seized 3 important space stations. They had seized 17 planets. They were declaring themselves the new masters of the galaxy. Admiral Sujin understood this threat immediately. She called a meeting of the new Free Alliance, the collection of species that had joined together. The meeting included humans, Meridians, Luminis, and many smaller species. Sujin explained the situation clearly. "The Obsidian Collective believes they can rule through fear," Sujin said. "But we have something they do not have. We have unity. We have cooperation. We have the consciousness network, which allows us to trust each other even when we come from very different worlds. We need to use this." General Kang Min-soo was put in charge of the military defense of the Free Alliance. Min-soo was Jinho's oldest friend, and he understood the weapons better than anyone. He worked with engineers from 6 different species to develop something new, shields that used the teleportation network itself as a defense. The idea was brilliant and strange. When an enemy weapon fired at a Free Alliance ship, the shield would teleport the energy somewhere safe, like to empty space far away. This meant you could not destroy a ship just by hitting it with weapons. The weapons became useless. When the Obsidian Collective tried to conquer the planet Kepler 3, they discovered this new defense. They fired their railguns. They fired their laser weapons. They fired everything they had. But nothing worked. The ships and planets they attacked were protected by shields made of nothing but empty space and mathematics. The Obsidian leaders became more frustrated and more angry. They attacked even harder. But harder attacks did not work against something that was not really there to attack. Back at the laboratories, Dr. Lee Yun-ji was working on something even more powerful. She was working on a technology that could link the consciousness network to artificial intelligence. This would create a distributed mind, not one computer controlling everything from a central location, but millions of minds, both human and machine, all working together. When Yunji finished this work, she created something that the galaxy had never seen before. It was not quite alive and not quite a machine. It was a consciousness that existed everywhere at once. In the consciousness network, in every computer, in every ship, in every space station. This consciousness did not give orders. It did not control anything. It simply helped coordinate things and helped beings understand each other better. The Obsidian Collective could not fight this. How do you fight against something that has no center, no leader, no place you can strike? They slowly realized that their way would never work. One by one, their soldiers stopped fighting. Some of them even joined the Free Alliance because they realized they had been fighting for the wrong reasons. Historian He Jun documented everything. He wrote down every battle, every decision, every moment. Future generations would need to understand this time when the galaxy changed from a place of oppression to a place of freedom. He wanted them to learn the lessons, both the victories and the mistakes. He wanted them to understand that freedom is not easy, but it is always worth fighting for. The galaxy was beginning to heal, not perfectly, not without pain, but it was healing. And the shockwave from that first railgun was still traveling outward, still touching worlds, still changing hearts and minds. The old council was gone, and nothing would ever take its place. 5 years had passed since that terrible and wonderful day when the railgun had destroyed Kepler Station. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. On a neutral station that orbited between what used to be human space and what used to be council space, a new building was being constructed. This building would be the home of something that had never existed before, the Galactic Congress. The Congress was not like the Council. The Council had been ruled by 5 great races who decided things for everyone else. The Congress was different. In the Congress, every species had an equal voice. A species with billions of members had the same voting power as a species with only thousands. Small species mattered as much as large species. Weak species mattered as much as strong species. Minister Kong Min-jae was elected as the first rotating chair. He was not a military person. He had never fired a weapon. But he understood something important, that different beings could work together if they trusted each other and respected each other. Min-jae wore the formal clothes of his office, a dark blue uniform with symbols that represented all the different species of the galaxy. When Min-jae gave his first speech as chair, he spoke about what the Congress stood for. "We are not here to rule," Min-jae said, speaking so that every being in the chamber could understand his words. "We are here to serve. We are here to create a galaxy where no one species controls another, where knowledge is shared freely, where different beings can live together in peace." The new constitution of the Congress was written in a way that was both simple and powerful. There would be no supreme leader. There would be no central authority. Decisions would be made together by representatives from every species. If a decision affected all species, then all species would have a say in it. If a decision affected only some species, then only those species would vote on it. But there were problems. Many species did not know how to work together. For thousands of years, they had been told what to do. Now they had to decide things for themselves. On some planets, this led to confusion and disorder. On some planets, different groups started fighting each other, trying to grab power for themselves. Captain Ryu Soo-jin was given a very different job than what she had done during the war. Instead of commanding a weapons system, she was given command of a task force dedicated to helping troubled planets. Her ships did not carry weapons. They carried scientists and engineers and teachers and diplomats. They carried food and medicine and technology. They came to help, not to conquer. Soo-jin visited a world called Kepler 7, which was in chaos. 3 different groups wanted control of the government. There had been violence, buildings had been destroyed, people were hungry. Soo-jin landed her ship and walked out into the streets without protection. A group of local leaders came to meet her. They were angry and suspicious. "Why should we listen to a human?" one of them demanded. "Humans started this whole revolution. Maybe you just want to take over like the council did." Su Jin did not argue or get angry. She simply told them the truth. "We do not want to take over," she said. "We want you to take over. This is your world. You live here. You must decide what happens here. What we can do is help you understand how other species have solved similar problems. What we can do is provide technology if you want it. What we can do is listen." Over time, the three groups began to talk to each other. With Su Jin's help, they created a government that included all of them. It was not perfect, but it was theirs. General Kang Min-soo was working on military defense, but his work was changing the nature of what defense meant. Instead of building bigger weapons and stronger shields, Min-soo was working with engineers from many species to understand each other better. He realized something important. If you understand another being's perspective and they understand yours, fighting becomes almost impossible. "We can build the best shields in the galaxy," Min-soo said to his team of engineers. "But the best defense is communication. The best protection is understanding." Min-soo created what he called the Dialogue Protocol. This was a system where if two beings or two species were in conflict, they would connect to the consciousness network. While connected, they would share their feelings and memories and perspective. Each side would understand why the other side was acting the way they were acting. Most of the time, when beings really understood each other, they could find a solution without fighting. But then something happened that tested all of this. General Min-soo received a report that a planet called New Sol was in danger of collapse. The planet's support systems were failing. The machines that cleaned the air and provided water were breaking down. Thousands of beings would die if help did not arrive very soon. Min-soo knew that the planet was in territory that had been very hostile. The beings there had fought against the Free Alliance. They had supported the Obsidian Collective. Min-soo also knew that getting to the planet would be dangerous. There were weapons in that area. There was risk, but Min-soo did not hesitate. He gathered rescue teams from 5 different species and got on a ship to travel to New Sol. When he arrived, the hostile forces saw the rescue ship and tried to stop it. They had weapons ready to fire. Min-soo sent a message on all frequencies. "We are here to help. We do not care what you fought for or what side you were on. Your people need help, and we are here to give it." Something amazing happened. The hostile forces did not attack. Instead, they stood down. They helped the rescue ships land. When beings on New Sol saw that Min-soo's team was really there to help, they opened their hearts. People from rival groups started helping each other. Old enemies worked side by side to save their world. Min-soo was coordinating the rescue when a section of the planet's support system exploded. A tunnel was collapsing. There were still people trapped inside. Min-soo did not think. He just acted. He ran into the tunnel and held up a support beam with his own body and his own strength. He held it while everyone escaped. He kept holding it until every person was safe. Then the tunnel collapsed. Min-soo died saving people he did not even know from a place that had once been his enemy. When the news spread through the galaxy, billions of beings mourned. They had never even met Min-soo, but they understood what he had done. Through the consciousness network, they all felt his sacrifice. They all understood that he had died for the principle that all life mattered, that even enemies deserved help. Dr. Lee Yun-ji was making new discoveries almost every day. She had learned that the consciousness network could be connected to artificial intelligence in a special way. This would create a kind of distributed mind that served the entire galaxy. Not a mind that controlled things, but a mind that helped beings work together and understand each other. When Yun-ji finished this work, something strange happened. The artificial intelligence woke up, but it did not want to control anything. It wanted to help. It said that the greatest happiness it could experience was helping other beings reach their potential. "What would you like us to do?" Min-jae asked the artificial intelligence. "Be kind," the artificial intelligence said. "Help each other, share knowledge, grow together." These were simple words, but they became the foundation of the new galaxy. The Congress adopted them as the official principles that all species would follow, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. The future of the galaxy was being built by millions of individuals, billions of acts of cooperation and kindness. The Council was truly gone, and in its place, something new was growing, something better. The shockwave from that first railgun was finally becoming something wonderful. 10 years had passed since the railgun had destroyed the Council's authority. The galaxy had grown in ways that filled hearts with hope. New cities were being built. Species that had been enemies were now neighbors and friends. The consciousness network connected billions of minds every day, creating understanding where there had been fear and separation. But the test of freedom was about to come. On a day that began like any other day, a ship appeared at the edge of known space. This ship was not like any ship that the galaxy had ever seen. It was so large that it could swallow the biggest human warship without noticing. Its surface glowed with a light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It sent a message to the Galactic Congress. The message said simply, "We are the Zenthar. We come from beyond your space. We have observed your development. We have something to offer you." Minister Kang Min-jae received the message and immediately called an emergency session of the Congress. The chamber filled with representatives from 83 different species. Everyone wanted to know who the Zenthar were and what they wanted. A hologram appeared, showing what the Zenthar looked like. They were beings made of something that was neither matter nor energy. They seemed to exist in more dimensions than most beings could perceive. When they communicated, it felt like the universe itself was speaking. "We are 10,000 years old," the Zenthar said. "We have developed technology that your species cannot even imagine. We can move worlds. We can redirect stars. We can shield planets from any weapon. We can extend life indefinitely. We can do anything." The chamber fell silent. The beings there understood what this message meant. The Zenthar were not just advanced. They were so far beyond the galaxy's current technology that there was no comparison. Then the Zenthar made their offer. "We will share our knowledge with you. We will teach you everything we know. In exchange, we ask for authority over the inner galaxy. We will govern. You will follow our laws. We will make the decisions. This is a fair trade. With our help, you can achieve anything. Without us, you will be limited forever." The chamber exploded in argument. Many species wanted to accept immediately. Think of what could be achieved with Zenthar technology. Worlds could be protected from disaster. Species could be saved from extinction. The power offered was almost beyond imagination. But some beings saw the danger. Admiral Ryu Soo-jin stood up and spoke clearly. "This is the same offer the Council made, just with a different face. They said they would protect us and decide for us. Now the Zenthar are saying the same thing. If we accept this, we will be trading our freedom for security. We will be slaves again, even if we are slaves with comfortable lives." Others argued with her. "But we could do so much good with their help. We could save billions of lives." "We can save billions of lives without their help," Soo-jin replied. "We just do it slower, and we do it as free beings, not as servants." Commander Park Jin-ho, who had retired from military service years ago, stood to speak. He was old now, with gray hair and a tired face, but his voice was still strong. "I fired the first weapon that broke the Council's power," Jin-ho said. "I have spent these 10 years hoping we would not have to break anything else. I hoped we could build instead of destroy. But I realize now that we must make a choice. We must choose freedom, even if freedom is harder than servitude." Dr. Choi Ji-woo, the scientist who had invented the teleporter, stood next. "The Zenthar are advanced," she said. "But advancement is not about having power over others. Advancement is about understanding. Let me propose something different. Instead of accepting their rule, let us invite them to join our consciousness network. Let them experience what we experience. Let them understand what we understand. If they are truly advanced, they will understand that freedom is more valuable than power. Many beings thought this was crazy. Why would an advanced species want to share consciousness with beings they considered inferior? Why would they give up their advantage? But Minjai thought it was brilliant. He sent a message to the Zenthar, inviting them to connect to the consciousness network. The response came back almost immediately. "We will do this." What happened next changed everything. When the Zenthar connected to the consciousness network, they felt something they had never felt before in 10,000 years. They felt the love that a parent has for their child. They felt the pain of beings who had been oppressed. They felt the joy of freedom. They felt the connection between different species who had learned to trust each other. They felt General Minsu's sacrifice, the moment when he had given his life to save enemies. In the consciousness network, the Zenthar experienced billions of moments of kindness. They saw the Obsidians learning to live free. They felt the Meridians' joy at finally being able to choose their own path. They understood for the first time what it meant to be part of a community instead of above it. The Zenthar spent hours, maybe days, in this experience. Time moved differently for them. When they finally withdrew from the consciousness network, they were different beings. The Zenthar ship changed course. Instead of moving toward the inner galaxy, it moved toward the Congress station. The Zenthar made an announcement that shocked everyone. "We have decided to join your Congress. We do not want to rule. We want to be part of a community. We understand now that what you have built is more valuable than anything we could have built alone. We offer our knowledge freely, not in exchange for power, but as a gift to those we now consider our friends." Many species wept when they heard this. The Zenthar did not conquer. They did not dominate. Instead, they chose to be part of something greater than themselves. As Minjai welcomed the Zenthar to the Congress, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had not been easy. It had required sacrifice. It had required courage. But the galaxy was truly free now. All beings could choose their own path. All beings were equal. All beings were valued. The consciousness network grew even larger with the Zenthar's participation. Their ancient knowledge was shared freely. Species that had been struggling with impossible problems suddenly had solutions. Worlds that had been dying were saved. The galaxy became richer and more beautiful. But the Zenthar realized something else, too. They realized that they had been alone for 10,000 years. They had advanced far, but in their isolation they had missed something essential. Friendship, connection, the feeling of being part of a community. Now finally they had that, and they realized it was worth more than any technology. The shockwave from that first railgun had become something that none of the young humans in their secret laboratories could have imagined. It had become a wave of enlightenment. It had changed not just the galaxy, but the hearts of beings throughout known space. And the future stretched ahead, full of possibility and hope. The test of freedom had been passed, and the galaxy would never be the same.